Welcome to Life Stories, where we share true, powerful stories about love, growth, and the unexpected turns life can take. Today's story is one many won't believe, but some will know all too well. It's about a woman who thought she was joining a loving family when she married the man she adored, only to discover she had stepped into a carefully controlled world, ruled by a mother-in-law with a schedule and a son who couldn't break free. Subscribe to the channel and join us as we begin today's story. The day I moved in with my husband, his mother handed me a schedule. I still remember the exact moment I knew something was off. It wasn't the cold look in Carolyn's eyes when Michael and I pulled into the driveway of his childhood home. It wasn't even the absence of a warm welcome home or a hug. No, it was the laminated, color-coded piece of paper she handed me before we'd even unpacked the car. This, she said, expression unreadable, is how you'll run the house, just like I do. Michael stood beside her, calm as a pond in winter. She's right, he said. Follow it. That moment didn't feel real, not yet. I laughed, honestly believing it was some kind of joke, a quirky southern tradition or a hazing ritual for new daughters-in-law. But neither of them cracked a smile. That was when the first crack appeared in the fairy tale I had believed I was living. 6 months earlier, Michael and I got married in a modest, sun-drenched ceremony just outside Sedona, Arizona. There were no grand gestures, no over-the-top expenses, just a handful of close friends, some cheap but cheerful wine, and string lights dancing in the trees above us as we swayed to a song we'd picked together. It felt intimate, pure, real. I married Michael because he made me feel safe. He was gentle, soft-spoken, thoughtful in a way that reminded me of what I thought love should look like. He called his mother every night during college. I'd often listened quietly as he updated her on his day, told her what he had for dinner, or asked if she'd remembered to take her vitamins. To me, it looked wholesome, endearing. Maybe I saw in Carolyn a mother I had lost too young. Maybe I wanted her to become mine. We agreed to live with her temporarily in San Antonio while saving for our own place. Rent was outrageous, and we were trying to be practical. It was meant to be just a few months, a stepping stone. But standing in that driveway, holding that schedule, I felt like I had walked into someone else's life. It wasn't a list of casual suggestions. It was a military-grade, hour-by-hour breakdown of my day. Wake up at 5:30 and start laundry by 5:45. Cook a hot breakfast, no cereal allowed by 6 o'clock. Serve Carolyn her coffee at 7 o'clock. Clean all 3 bathrooms by 7:30. Plan groceries by 8:30. The list went on: vacuuming, ironing, baking. A 2 p.m. sweet treat was mandatory. Dinner had to be prepped by 4:30 and served at 6 o'clock sharp. And then, after the dishes were scrubbed and the countertops polished, free time was allowed at 8, marked with an asterisk that read, "Must ask first." Weekends, deep cleaning. Sundays, spa day. My job was to run her a bath, light candles in the living room, and massage her feet. I turned to Michael and asked, "You are not serious, right?" His reply, "You're part of the family now. We all have roles. This is yours." I felt something twist inside me. Not anger, not even fear, just this slow, sinking coldness that told me I was alone. That despite the vows, despite the promises, despite the sunlit wedding beneath the trees, I had just stepped into a world where I didn't belong. Still, I smiled. I nodded. "Absolutely," I said. "I'll take this seriously." That night, I lay wide awake in the guest room they assigned me. Yes, guest room. I was told we'd earn the master bedroom once I had proven myself as a wife. Like a job promotion. Like loyalty points. I stared at the ceiling until 3 a.m. Then I sat up, opened my laptop, and typed a new schedule. One not laminated, but written with purpose. I called it Exit Plan. Day 1. Play along. Day 2. Collect evidence. Day 3. Pack essentials. Day 4. Call a lawyer. Day 5. Leave. Folded, printed, hidden inside my suitcase. Not to be followed with bitterness, but with clarity. I wasn't angry yet. I was heartbroken. Because I had walked into this house thinking I was joining a family. But what I found instead was a role I hadn't agreed to play,
and a man who had no intention of standing beside me.
I followed the schedule.
That first morning, I woke up at 5:30 sharp. Even though my body ached from days of wedding stress and travel, I moved quietly through the house, made eggs and toast, brewed coffee with 1 sugar and 1 cream poured into a glass mug, not ceramic. Carolyn didn't say thank you. She simply took it like she expected it. Michael left for work at 7:45. He didn't even look at me. Carolyn hovered behind me the entire morning, correcting me, commenting on everything I touched. You didn't vacuum the curtains.
Didn't I say the curtains? Don't fold his shirts like that.
Michael likes them stacked vertically. Did you check the fridge temperature this morning? We do that twice a day. I bit my tongue. I smiled. I nodded. By mid-afternoon, I had my phone on the table, quietly recording voice memos. I didn't want revenge.
I just needed something real, something tangible to remind me that I wasn't imagining this.
That I wasn't being overly sensitive. Around 2 o'clock p.m., she said the words that stopped me cold. You'll never run this house like I do. But if you try hard enough, maybe Michael won't leave you like his last girlfriend.
My heart thudded in my chest.
What last girlfriend?
He never told me about another engagement.
That night, after Carolyn went to bed, I slipped into the computer room downstairs.
The old email account she left open on her desktop was too tempting. I know it was wrong,
but so was everything else happening in that house. There it was, an email thread titled, about Michael's last engagement. She had written to a friend about a young woman who lived with them for 2 months. According to Carolyn, the girl couldn't handle the pressure. She had boundary issues. There was mention of a breakdown, emotional, not physical.
There was even a line. She accused me of gaslighting. Can you believe that?
I could.
Because I was starting to feel it too.
The next morning, I got up, dressed, and wrote a note. I taped it to the fridge.
Stepping out for a few errands.
Be back soon. I didn't go back. I had packed my suitcase the night before and left it in the car.
I drove straight to a hotel, a bland little chain near the airport.
But to me, it felt like a palace.
I had space.
Silence.
No schedule.
I called Emily, my cousin in Dallas, the only family I had left who truly understood me. She was a lawyer, sharp and calm.
I sent her everything. The audio recordings, the emails, the pictures of the house rules, and the footage of Carolyn's rants.
30 minutes later, she called me back. You need to get out completely, she said.
You already have everything you need. Now, let's hit them where it hurts legally.
That evening, I texted Michael. I left a new schedule on the table. Read it. He did. He called me, sobbing. I didn't pick up.
Michael's calls came in waves at first, every hour, then less often, until finally they stopped.
For 2 days, I heard nothing from him or Carolyn. I let myself believe it might be over.
But peace, when you've left a house built on control, never arrives without a fight.
On the 3rd morning, I opened the door of my hotel room to grab the food I'd ordered, and there she was, Carolyn, standing there like she had been waiting hours. Calm, too calm. She held a casserole dish wrapped in foil.
Her voice was soft, almost sweet.
Michael's been worried. He hasn't eaten in days. I figured you'd be here. I didn't respond. I couldn't.
My body froze.
She stepped forward, pressed the casserole into my hands. I didn't take it.
Then she handed me an envelope. Inside was a printed Bible verse. Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands, as you do to the Lord. Ephesians 5:22.
Underneath it, typed neatly, she had written, "This household follows God's word.
Please reflect."
It was signed, dated, underlined. I laughed. Not out of humor, something inside me cracked.
I looked her in the eye and said, "If your version of submission means becoming your unpaid servant, you can keep this." I placed the paper gently back in her hand and shut the door. Days later, Michael emailed me, a rambling apology. He said things like, "I didn't think it was that serious.
You never said you hated the house."
My MOM was just trying to help. And then the one that broke something in me. I thought you'd be more traditional.
like we talked about before.
I responded with one line.
Your definition of traditional looks a lot like slavery. He didn't reply for a week.
Meanwhile, Emily worked on annulment paperwork. But then another blow. I received a formal-looking letter from a lawyer. Carolyn was filing a personal damages claim against me for emotional distress and abandonment of family duty. Emily nearly spit out her coffee when she read it.
She's trying to sue you.
For not being her maid? Apparently, yes.
Emily called the lawyer, who admitted Caroline had tried something similar with Michael's last fiancée.
It hadn't gone anywhere. She's venting, he said.
We didn't even file it in court.
That's when it hit me. This wasn't a unique situation. I wasn't just part of a bad relationship. I was part of a pattern. Carolyn had done this before, and Michael had let it happen before. I became obsessed with finding the other woman. I scoured Reddit, old college Facebook groups, messaged acquaintances I barely remembered. Eventually, I found her Lauren.
We met in a quiet CAF in Austin.
She had kind eyes, soft voice, a scar on her hand from cleaning their oven twice, because Caroline said she used the wrong sponge.
Michael had watched and told her, you should have listened. She stayed, she told me, because she thought it was her fault, that if she just tried harder, loved better, they would change.
I knew then what I hadn't wanted to admit. I had married a man who never left his mother's shadow.
Not emotionally.
Not financially. Not spiritually.
Caroline didn't just control him, she owned him. And I had to let go of the fantasy that I could save him.
I never responded to Michael's last email.
It was the most sincere message he'd ever sent. He told me he was in therapy, that he'd moved out of Caroline's house and was renting a tiny one-bedroom apartment in a rough part of town.
He said he was working nights, trying to figure out who he was without her voice echoing in his mind. He didn't beg me to come back.
He didn't ask for another chance.
He just wrote, "You were the first person who told me I could be more than what she built me to be. I'm sorry I didn't listen when I had the chance."
And maybe he meant it. Maybe he really had changed.
But I had learned something far more important than whether he loved me. I was not a rescue mission.
I was a person.
Real love isn't supposed to cost your freedom.
It's not about sacrificing your identity to fit someone else's definition of family. It's not about being small to make someone else feel in control.
I had spent so long trying to be enough for him, for Carolyn, for a household that saw me as nothing more than a role to fill.
In the end, I wasn't the one who failed them. They failed me. Now, I sleep through the night.
I eat full meals. I smile and feel it.
I walk past mirrors and recognize the woman looking back. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away not out of anger, but out of love for yourself. Thank you for watching and listening.
If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Life Stories for more real stories of resilience, love, and the lessons we learn along the way.
See you in the next video.